welcome back to the channel and welcome to our weekly Q&A live stream, which just so happens to fall on the eve of Celtic's third Champions League game against Atalanta tomorrow night, away from home in the competition, where, well, we've got a bit of a job to do, haven't we? We've got to pick up the pieces from our last outing in the competition. Celtic lost 7-1 in Dortmund just a few weeks ago. Atalanta, current holders of the Europa League trophy, arguably at the minute look a better side than Borussia Dortmund. I think you could make that case. It's a terrifying thought. A lot of people nervous at the prospect of this journey to Bergamo. And obviously the big news coming out today with Cameron Carter-Vickers not travelling to Italy for this game. It leaves a lot of us a bit of a head loss in what it means for tomorrow night's game. We're going to try and cover it all tonight in this live stream. I want to get your questions as we go on throughout the stream as well. So as always, yeah, we'll try and get through all the necessities. We'll talk about what the manager said, the news surrounding the game, and we'll go through my team prediction, etc. Bit different from the usual kind of 10-minute match preview video I would do. I thought this would be a nicer thing to do this week. You know, just change it up a wee bit rather than just the typical match preview content. So if you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe, especially that like button. It would be much appreciated. It's nice to see you all piling in, especially members of the 118 and Thunder Club: Alan, John, Dylan, Kyle, Baldy, Prick, Ida Enthusiast, Chill Pill, and to everybody else who aren't members, Jordan, Nathan, Jason, etc. It is nice to see you. As I said, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and if you aren't a member of the channel, you can do that by using the top link in the description below, or that join button as well. But anyway, Celtic head to Italy tomorrow night to take on Atalanta. It's match day 3. It's been a mixed bag of results: a 5-1 win against Slovan Bratislava, a 7-1 loss in Borussia Dortmund, whereas at Atalanta, it's been a little bit different for them thus far. A draw with Arsenal at their ground in their opening match day. They then went on to beat, and I should say batter, Shakhtar Donetsk 3-0 away from home on the 2nd of October in that match day. Atalanta are a good side. Have started pulling it back domestically as well as we head into this game. A couple of weeks ago, they were struggling. They weren't doing too well. In fact, they were sitting, I think, 12th in the Serie A table. They have managed to rise up that table to 6th at this current moment in time. They currently sit 6th in Serie A after a couple of good results, beating Venezia 2-0 at the weekend. And before that, they battered Genoa 5-1 just before the international break. So they are starting to get themselves together a little bit. They're starting to play the football that we were seeing from them last season, which ultimately took them to the Champions League, which took them to winning the Europa League. Remember, this is the side, the only side, who managed to beat Bayer Leverkusen last year. Bayer Leverkusen, arguably the best team in the continent last year outside Real Madrid. They went on to win the Bundesliga. They went on to win the Pokal in undefeated fashion. Nobody in Germany could beat them. Nobody in Europe could beat them until that game in Dublin in the cup final, where it happened to be Atalanta who battered them on the day 3-0 via an Adamola Lookman hat-trick. This is a side that know how to play football. This is a side that will play similar football to what we've seen from Borussia Dortmund, who will punish us when going forward, and it will call on Celtic to be that little bit more pragmatic. Now, Brendan Rodgers is coming under fire for a few of his comments in recent times, and obviously his opinion heading into this game as well, because he says he's not going to change what he does. But ultimately, I think he himself will need to realise that some changes will need to happen to ensure we don't see a 7-1 loss in Bergamo tomorrow night, to ensure we don't get embarrassed once more, because we need to ultimately avoid that. Listen, I want Celtic to win. Of course I do, but I think for a lot of people, this game has quickly turned into a game where ultimately winning, drawing, yeah, it would be great, but just avoid embarrassment. We don't want to be watching with our eyes covered. We don't want to be watching and thinking about turning it off 20, 30 minutes into the game. Celtic need to avoid an absolute doing tomorrow night, and I think that has ultimately become the bare minimum for a lot of supporters. And I understand why. I get it. Yeah, we should be wanting Celtic to win, and I do want us to win. Do I think we can? Different story. But I do want us to win. But ultimately, if we walk out of Bergamo tomorrow night, say we lost 2-1, after what happened in Dortmund, you might look at that as actually a good result for the side. So Brendan Rodgers does need to change certain things. We can't suffer another embarrassment. There's been one too many over this past 5 or 6 years. Brendan Rodgers has obviously been in charge for a few of them now. 6-0 in Madrid, 7-1 in Dortmund, 7-0 in Barcelona, 7-1 in PSG. That will hurt his ego. It will hurt his pride as Celtic manager, and he knows that he can get better out of us. This is the same manager who has went toe to toe with Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. It's the same manager who managed to win in the Champions League at Celtic Park for the first time in 10 years. Over the past 10 years, he's the only manager to win at Celtic Park in the Champions League. So he's a manager that knows how to do it. It's just certain things that need to change. Here was one of Brendan Rodgers' comments from earlier on tonight. I'll bring it up on screen for you in case you haven't seen it. He was asked about, changing his style and if he would change his style going into this game this evening, saying that if it's a pragmatic coach, then it's a different coach. I'm a different person. If a coach's DNA is to sit back, then that's not me. So he's basically saying, I'm not going to change what I do. I want us to go out there and play the football that we play and try and win the game in that manner. And do you know what? I respect it. I respect it. I don't think it's necessarily right, and I said the same under Ange. The problem that I have with that comment, though, and the thing that rubs me up the wrong way is this is the exact same thing that Ange Postecoglou used to say, and people loved it. People lapped it up. Oh, it's great. We're getting a manager who's going to go for it in Europe, play good football. And then he did get battered, and I don't feel like he's came under anywhere near the same criticism that Brendan Rodgers does. Maybe that's because he's been in charge a few more times than what Ange was at these kind of European beheadings. But it's the same thing as what Ange would say. Do I think he's bluffing, says Kieran? No, I don't think he is. I think this is the thing, right? There's a difference between, and we spoke about this in the podcast, there's a difference between completely reverting to, parking the bus or a completely different tactic. There is a difference between tinkering things and then going wholesale changes through the team and through the tactics. What I think that people mix up with very quickly when they hear quotes like this is Brendan Rodgers is not going to sit and play park the bus football, and neither he should, and neither we don't want him to. So I completely agree with him on that part. Doesn't mean that he's not going to make changes. It doesn't mean that he's not going to do certain things different. It just means that we're not going to sit in. It just means that we're not going to play like a team would play at Celtic Park if they came from 12th, 11th in the Scottish Premiership. It's slight things that need to change, not the entire working mechanism that is Celtic as a unit. So I get where he's coming from. I can also understand the apprehension behind those comments. The big thing is defensively, we're at a bit of a mess going into tomorrow night, aren't we? Cameron Carter-Vickers is not travelling. Brendan Rodgers has also obviously confirmed that in his press conference, but Stephen McGowan broke that news earlier on today, saying that Cameron Carter-Vickers didn't travel with Celtic to Italy for this game against Atalanta. Pardon everything Celtic's limmy reaction below, but essentially that was the headline that people cared most about. That was the one that we have been waiting to hear about, and we have got that very, very tough confirmation that he isn't there, that he won't be playing tomorrow night, which I think does ultimately hurt our chances even more so of getting a good result. I have not yet switched to that side that are writing the likes of Trusty off when he's just arrived. I think there's a long way to go and he's been thrown in at the deep end, but do I think that he's maybe I think playing in the unnatural side of the defence for himself and all these different yeah, it just, for me, it's just it's a tough position to be in for Trusty, and it's just not an ideal back four we'll have out there. Taylor being injured hasn't helped us. Vickers being injured hasn't helped us. We have had to change things up at times where we haven't wanted to. I expect to see better tomorrow, but we need to just, support the defence a bit better. Don't do what we done against Dortmund and leave players isolated all over the most dangerous areas in the park. If we do that, if we do the basics right, if we do that part of the job right, then we certainly won't go and concede 7 goals or 4 goals in rapid concession, because that shouldn't be happening anyway. Yeah, I think that we just need to tighten up in that very important part between the kind of attacking midfielders and the forwards. We seem to just give them a gulf of space to play in Dortmund, and we were watching players like Julian Brandt really carry the ball into dangerous areas without being challenged at all. We can't afford to do that tomorrow night. Atalanta have players that can hurt us. They have players, look what Adeyemi done. The way he was able to cut inside at basically every opportunity, the space that he was allowed to kind of move into. We can't do that to Ademola Lookman. 3 goals and 3 assists so far this season. Scored a hat-trick in the Europa League final. Very much on form this year. Guys that have got the up front, 8 goals already this season. I believe it's Retegui. I think that's how you pronounce it, Matteo Retegui. 8 goals in 11 games. Unbelievable. Can't allow him the spaces. And then even guys like, De Ketelaere, midfielders who can move forward, Ederson in the centre mid positions. Look out for these players. Celtic need to be smarter when they try and follow what they're doing. And it's not about, of course, parking the bus, as I said. It's just about, not giving them as much respect and time to think about things that we're doing in Dortmund. It's the reason that they went up and scored after our equaliser so quickly, because we were just, we weren't defending the way we need to defend. So, yeah, I'm sure that you've all got plenty to say in regards to the tactics of the game and the players who we need to support the most and look out for the most in the opposition as well. So I'll come on to your questions in a moment. Yeah, this is going to be a big game. I just don't want things to be blown out of proportion once more. Like, listen, and I can see, whoa, Ian, bloody Nora, Ian, 10, Aberdeen, where's Ian? Oh my, Ian, what a guy, by the way. See, because I do respect Ryan, and I have lives left, I am gifting. Oh, Ian, man, wow, that's 10 gifts, and 10 memberships have just been. I don't know who the lucky ones are who have just been gifted the membership. It's thrown me off what I was saying, but this is more important. Ian, what a legend, mate. By the way, great game at the weekend. Wish Aberdeen the best of luck with the rest of their season. Apart from that semi-final at Hampden, I hope that goes one way, and that's Celtic winning, of course. I look forward to seeing you again. But thank you, everybody say thank you to Ian for gifting out 10 memberships. I think I can see a couple of people who have already picked them up. I don't know how it exactly works on here, but 10 people now part of the 118 club. So thank you, Ian. Much appreciated, mate. You're an absolute legend. God bless you, honestly. And hopefully I see you jumping in and out of some streams and some videos and such over the course of the season. And, of course, leading up to the semi-final. What a guy. And well done to anybody who managed to pick up any of the gifted subscriptions. Yeah, Callum McGregor called for us to be together and resolute. Brendan Rodgers says that we deserve to be here in the competition. We have to install that belief in the players. I hope that we see all of that tomorrow against Atalanta. This is a side who like to play and attack the game. It's a team that play really good football. I mean, is it Gasperini? His name is the manager. He's been there for years now. He's built a really, Gian Gasperini. He's been there for years now. 2016, 8-9 seasons he's coming up for now. And he's transformed that whole culture at the club, and a lot of it's because of the positive football that he plays. So he's said that he won't underestimate Celtic, but God, he knows exactly what he has to do to try and put 7 by us. Anyway, I've yapped for a good amount of time. In terms of team, I'll do my team prediction, and then I want to just kind of spend 15-20 minutes talking to you guys. Ian secretly, it must be, Ian, that's a fucking fortune, mate. But I appreciate that, man. I really do. What a legend. I'll go through my team prediction very, very quickly, and then I'll get to your questions. So in goals, of course, Kasper Schmeichel. I believe that's the only way to go down. Back 4. I'm assuming it's going to be a back 4 of Johnston, Trusty, Scales and Valley. Yes, not an ideal defence, and for a game like this, once again, I must admit, it does kind of give me the fear. Liam Scales had by all accounts, a decent game in Dortmund. I thought he was the only defender who turned up on the day, to be quite honest. And he's been a cracking season where he's rarely put a foot wrong. If he can help hold that back line together with a little bit more support from in front of him, I think that we can do well. And this is where I'll come on to the midfield three. Midfield three for me, and I said this in the podcast, we need to learn from that mistake. Hatate needs to play in a game like this. For me, it's Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor and Arne Engels. But I think that this in this specific game, instead of having that one pivoting midfielder in Callum McGregor who takes up the number 6 role usually, we need to drop someone back with him, whether it be Engels or Hatate. Probably more suited to be in Engels, I think, just with the bit more physicality in his game. I just think that we need that kind of double pivot, if you like. I think we need the two of them sitting in behind the more advanced playmaker of the midfield. Just give the back line a little more protection, if you like. And I know that doesn't really go with what we normally do, but McGregor was so isolated in Dortmund a lot of the time where we would go forward with the ball and you would see McGregor ahead of the back line with nobody to his left or right to help him, forcing him into a decision, and sometimes it would be the wrong decision. I think that he maybe just needs that little bit of support alongside him. Play Hatate ahead of Engels and McGregor, and let him be the risk taker, let him be the guy that maybe picks out the pass, the diagonal or whatever, to get Maida involved, to get to get Kun involved, Kyogo involved, because I think that'll be the front three. I think it'll be Kun, Kyogo and Maida, of course, but for me, I just think that they all need to work in a fashion that maybe changes things slightly. And when Hatate, and I won't stop bumming up about this because I said it going into the Dortmund game, I don't think you can afford to bench a player like Rio Hatate in these big games, in games like Borussia Dortmund and Atalanta's, because I think his quality is right up there, and I think he's just a better player than Paulo Bernardo. I love Paulo Bernardo, but he's a better player, and you could see that. It was first and second half was night and day. I think Hatate came on the park, he was on the park for seconds, he played the diagonal, or he played a long ball, I should say, to Adamida. Adamida's through on goal, and it was a poor finish that let him down. Could have been a goal. Wouldn't have mattered. We still got pumped. But it was the difference in what was maybe missing from that first half. So for me, I think that you've got to have a Rio Hatate in there. I think that you've got to maybe hope for him to exploit the vision and the creativity of himself to get a ball out wide to Maida or Kun, and that would help Kyogo into the game. Even balls over the top to Kyogo. Feed the ball a little bit differently from how we would. It's walking the ball into the net isn't going to work against Atalanta, isn't going to work away from home in Europe. It's just not. We can't walk the ball into the net against Europa League champions. Sometimes you get away with it, and sometimes you do, of course, but I think that you just need to be a little bit more, not so much route one, but you need to be a little bit more direct with what you're trying to do, and I think that that's what I would do. I would have Hatate feed nose free and just drop one of the other midfielders back a little to support Callum McGregor in his defensive duties. So that's my team prediction for tomorrow. Of course, we'll see guys coming off the bench, guys like Bernardo and Ida, hopefully coming on to contribute in the game. We just can't get pumped. Please, Celtic. I don't want to be doing a match reaction talking about another 6-7-1. I'm nowhere near as confident going into this game as what I was against Borussia Dortmund. I remember sitting here on the and I'll be doing another pre-match stream tomorrow, so make sure to check us out tomorrow before kick-off. I'll be on an hour before kick-off for the team announcements. And I remember thinking, we could get a result tonight. I did say it's not going to happen. Realistically, I'm expecting defeat, but I was like, I felt confident, I felt good. Nowhere near that same level. Of course, it's not helped that we've played sort of below our optimum abilities in the last couple of games, but who says we can't? Anyway, right. I want to talk to you guys. I want to get your questions, your points, and yeah, let's do it. We've got just under 200 live viewers. If you haven't, please make sure to go down and hit that like button. And once again, before we go into questions, thank you very much to Ian for gifting out 10 memberships throughout the live stream. Remember, if you want to become a channel member, you can do that using the links below this video. Anyway, right, let's go. Valley is a decent attacker, but defensively the other day he had the wrong studs on. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Our fullbacks, I think, need to be a little bit more reserved as well, and what they're doing, they can't sell themselves too high up the park to leave the jobs to be done from other players. I hope that we see Maida back to his usual self tomorrow night. I didn't think he was himself at the weekend, but it is what it is. Baldy Prick saying McCowan should play, and surprised a lot of people saying play McCowan. And I'll tell you my reason for saying no to playing McCowan, right? And I'll just be completely honest about it. I really like Luke McCowan, and I really like what I've seen of him thus far. And I don't think there's anything to necessarily say that he's not ready for Champions League level. I don't think you can necessarily say that about him yet because he's done his job. But this is where I'm going to say he shouldn't play. Because of our supporters, right? No, I'm not targeting people in this stream. You just know the people I'm talking about and the kind of person I'm talking about. If he was to play poorly starting tomorrow's game, his Celtic career will be ripped up by some. People will say he's come from Dundee, he was never good enough for Celtic in the first place, he's not Champions League level, and he shouldn't play at that level again. People will jump to that conclusion if he has a nightmare. And obviously that's just a risk. He might not have a nightmare, he might have a great game, he could contribute to Celtic getting a cracker of a result in Italy. But if he does have a nightmare, people will tear him apart. Let him come on and make an impact in the game if he's having any say. And listen, realistically, he's not going to be in contention for a start tomorrow, I don't think. And that's the bottom line for me, I think. But that's the only reason I wouldn't start him. Nothing against Luke McCowan himself, just some of the supporters and how they act when someone has a poorer game. Baldy Prick saying, I'd rather a left back who can defend than a left back who just looks like a field winger. Fed up with these absolute dumplings at left back since Tierney. What I will say to that is I 100% agree, but don't get necessarily too Valley's had very little time. He's had, 2 starts? It's so early in his career, and for what it's worth, I think there's actually been some positives. I think there's been plenty of negatives as well, but I would say maybe keep the reservations about him on hold a little till further in the season. I don't think it's fair to necessarily jump in two-footed after a couple of games, but tomorrow night is huge for him, especially coming from Barcelona, where he should be expected to hold his own in games against teams like Borussia Dortmund and Atalanta. So tomorrow's a big test for him. I think that's where we maybe will be able to make that kind of judgment of whether or not he's going to be good enough or no. But he needs to be better. Mark saying, are we just going into this way? I will lose, but try not to make it as bad if that's shite. Listen, I think that's how we are going into it, to be fair. For a lot of fans, I personally don't give up the hope that Celtic can nick something tomorrow. I will always cling on to it. But Dortmund has really disheartened a lot of supporters. And really, I mean, I think what the big difference is the fact that we're playing someone like Atalanta. Even if we were playing Milan tonight, or tomorrow night, I'd have fancied our chances a bit more. Honestly, it's just because they've won the Europa League and they play really nice football. I think people are a bit concerned. And rightly so. Just a preview, no watch-alongs tomorrow. Thank you, Rannies. I'll keep that in mind. I think I need to check how the poll's going, actually. But no watch-alongs, sorry. Nah, listen, I'd get cancelled or something. There's no way I'd be doing a watch-along for a European game. No way. As much as I'd love to one time. Maybe one day, but not tomorrow. Let's see, new stadium. Go on, Mackenzie, son. Get that stadium built. I hope you get a good name. He's not the player that we were promised, though, and that's the problem with Barry. Not the complete fullback we wanted. Yeah, listen, ultimately, I think what people need to also remember is we left it so last minute for a left back. Valley came in with hours to go. We didn't do our due diligence and try to sign a left back. I actually think that signing a fullback is one of the hardest things to do in the modern game, especially because they're expected to do so much. It's not like 15, 20 years ago where a fullback was a fullback and that was it. Now they're expected to be wingers, they're expected to be inverted, they're expected to be able to play football. A fullback used to be a defender. It's not anymore. And I think it's still becoming a role that's so hard to really master, where it makes it really difficult to sign them if you want all of these things in amongst them. And we left it late. That's Celtic's fault, not Alex Valley's fault. So it's not worth getting on his back for it, I don't think. Not yet, anyway, Eddie, is what I would say to that. Kyle saying, hi Ryan, in Europe it's one of the other. If we focus in the Champions League, we fall back in the league. And then when we focus in the league, we fall back in the Champions League. Can he win? Well, hopefully we fall back on neither. We need to just get back into rip-roaring form and play the way we were playing 3-4 games ago. And I'm pretty sure it will come back, Kyle. But I get where you're coming from. 100%. We're getting battered tomorrow. Not looking forward to it in the slightest. Mark just accepting defeat already. I think most supporters have. And as I said at the top of the stream, I think you can argue that Atalanta is a harder game than Dortmund. When you go off how both teams have went so far this season and what they've done over the past couple of seasons, yeah, Dortmund made it to a Champions League final, of course, but Atalanta, Europa League winners, doing much better in their domestic season than what Dortmund are so far. Certainly playing better football anyway. Yeah, you could argue this is a tough game. Both of them are tough games. Every game in the Champions League is a tough game, for goodness sake. Maida been off the boil as well. Do you think it's because Greg Taylor has been out? Kuhn is the same without AJ. Listen, off the boil, I think it's a stretch for Maida because it was one game. But it will maybe, and I think that is a big part of it though. I think you're right, Kevin, in the sense that I think he played poorly at the weekend without Taylor being on that side of the park with him. But he just looked off altogether. I don't know if it was necessarily just stacks. He looked slower. It just didn't look like Maida, and I can't really put my finger on exactly what was wrong with him at the weekend. Michael saying that, Ryan, I was on here before Dortmund and said we can't concede early, and then we did after 5 minutes. We need to slow the game down tomorrow and play smarter like smaller clubs do in the league against us. Yeah, listen, it's the start of the games that could be life or death for Celtic, and we've seen that too many times, and especially in these hidings in Europe. I watched Club Brugge in Milan tonight, and we play Bruges in this competition. Bruges are a team who we are fully expecting to beat, actually, at Celtic Park. I mean, it's one of the must-win games for us. They went to the San Siro tonight, went down to 10 men, and still played pretty well. Don't know if anybody else watched it. I think they got beat in the end. I had to come up the stair before I watched the final, but they were down 2-1 as I came up here. And they were playing well. And I think part of it was Milan just being poor. They didn't look great, but they were playing football like Rodgers speaks about. Not parking the bus, not putting 10 men behind the ball while having a go at it. It was kind of what we need to start doing. And yeah, we need to be able to channel sort of performances like that. I don't know why it's just impossible for us. I think it's maybe just that overconfidence that we have in ourselves that sometimes comes back to bite us, to be quite honest. What I want to say is, and we'll talk about this probably more tomorrow in the pre-match stream and definitely in the post-match reaction. Listen, if Celtic lose tomorrow, and even if it somehow ends up another fucking 7-1 loss, it's still not over. Celtic losing tomorrow is the result that I expected when the group was drawn. When the group was drawn, I was pretty accepting that the opening 3 games would result in 1 win and 2 losses when I seen the order of games. That's what I expected. And that was me with me still thinking we can finish in that top 24. And I think that it's a case of just not getting carried away, but realising how good a team Atalanta actually are as well. Don't throw in the towel or chuck it. We still have winnable games. Ultimately, when the group was drawn, or the 8 games were drawn, I should say, not the group. When the league was drawn for Celtic and we were given the 8 teams, I said you need 12 points to really guarantee yourself that top 24. 10 points is kind of okay, but it's ambitious. You need 12, which means you need to win 4 games. For me, I said Slovan Bratislava, Club Brugge, Dinamo Zagreb, and Young Boys are the 4 games we need to win. Anything outside of those 4 are bonus points for Celtic. Those other 4 being Borussia Dortmund, Aston Villa, Atalanta, and RB Leipzig. Out of those 4 games, any points are bonus points. But if we can win the other 4, we have a really solid chance of qualifying for the playoff round. So it's not all over and done with if we lose tomorrow night. And please tell that to everybody you know. Urge that to them. And don't chuck it if we lose tomorrow night, because it's not over. It's not, no matter what the score is tomorrow night. But points would be beautiful. And goal difference, of course, does come into account. But that's why we just need to avoid these absolute shaggins. Right now, the goal difference is only -2, which isn't terrible. But aye, nonetheless. Lookman is sadly still at Atalanta playing out skin. He is playing out skin. 3 goals, 3 assists so far this season for Adamo Lookman. He is a very good player. Watch us get 12 points and come 25th. It would be the Celtic way, to be fair. It would be our luck. Listen, 12 points is such an achievement if we get it. And I already know if we were to get it against the 4 teams I said, people go, well, look at the teams you beat. Who cares? You can only beat what's in front of you. And if that's the 4 we beat to get 12 points, then, Hello, nice to see you, Paul. I hope you're well too. I'm good this evening, sir. It's nice to have you at any point in the stream, no matter when you join. You obviously can watch it back from the start if you really want to as well. Got the Real Madrid game on, nice. I think that'll be a pumping tonight. I think that Dortmund might get a bit of a... I think they might be on the other end of a hiding tonight, to be quite honest. They look poor. That's funny to say considering they beat us 7-1, but they do look poor, man. You know me, I love my Bundesliga football, and just... They're a bit torturous to watch, Dortmund, which makes losing to them that manner even feel even worse now. There's a way to lose, and it's not getting humiliated by bad tactics from the manager. It's just, yeah, it's just tactics just need tinkering. We've got a great manager, and he knows how to win games. He's done it at the highest level. He's managed the Premier League. He's won the FA Cup. He's won Champions League games with Celtic. He's, as I mentioned earlier, went toe-to-toe with Pep Guardiola. He just needs to change something when it comes to playing away from home, because we can't go through these results time and time again. If we do get pumped, I don't think I'll be going on Twitter after the game. Absolutely not. I've been thinking about deleting my Twitter because I hate it, but I kind of need it for my job. So I don't really have an option, but I fucking hate it. Call me Ancelotti, but Yang to start. Oh my God. I'll pretend I never seen that, Rustcats. Jesus. If we play how we normally play, we could get a point in this game, but a 1-0 or 2-0 loss isn't the worst result. No, of course not. Listen, if we lose 2-0 tomorrow night, I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? I don't like losing, but it's better than 7. Scales headers or Julian headers? Julian headers, mate, all day. I miss a Julian header. I've seen a lot of people saying that we should park the bus, but teams do that against us all the time, and it doesn't work. Falkirk came to Celtic Park and attacked, and we're winning for around 70 minutes. Yeah, look, listen, as Rodgers said as well, and this isn't me just backing up Brendan Rodgers, it's just because he said it, so it's a quote that comes to mind. But, like, what makes people think if we park the bus, we're going to win anyway? We're not. If we park the bus, we're still going to get beat. So is the manager got a right to say what he thinks, in the sense that I'd rather lose in our way of playing football? I don't think it's about parking the bus. I can't say, I feel I sound like a broken record on this stream. It's just about changing certain things about the performance. Doesn't need a wholesale changing to be able to go fucking park the bus. And I wouldn't go 5 at the back. Not to just disregard what you're saying, Paulio, but or Paul. Is that Paul? Paul. I'm just going to say Paul. Not to disregard what you're saying, but we've seen it happen. He tried it once and it was even worse. I just think that changing shape like that is a big risk in a game like that, especially when you've not tried it. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the stream there this evening, ladies and gents. Brave. I will be back on the channel tomorrow before the game for the lineup reaction stream, so make sure to tune in around, well, the game kicks off at 4:45. I'll probably be live on here about 4:45. If you're doing your work or working from home or whatever, and we'll discuss it as a fruit fly, and we'll discuss the game. And then obviously I'll be back after the game for the post-match reaction stream as well. So tune in for both videos tomorrow. Hopefully we've got a big smile on our face. But this is it for the preview tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And once more, oh, nearly pressed end there. And once more before we go, big shout out to Ian for gifting out those 10 channel memberships as well tonight. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gents. Much appreciated. See you next time. God bless.